Well, guys, it's finally that time for, I don't even know, 2 years ago since I did my first missing person video. You guys have been requesting that I check out Summer Wells, and that's what we will be doing. For the past few days, I've been running myself ragged, not gonna lie, trying to channel for answers for this case. I will relay some of the basic information. I'm not going to go too in depth about like what other psychics have said or yada yada yada, because to be honest, I purposely don't look up information, especially before I channel. If I'm going to look up information, it's going to be right after, just to get a basic story for those who are interested and don't even know what's going on. And the whole purpose of this video is to keep this case alive, okay? And also, I'm going to be very upfront. Yeah, psychic mediums and psychics, whatever. It can be very helpful for cold cases or cases that haven't turned up anything, to present our impressions, to maybe help give new perspectives of things and maybe go into directions that maybe law enforcement haven't tried yet, just to keep it rolling, you know? And yeah, I'll be upfront. I didn't get as much information as I would have liked to. Not like with Dylan Rounds, not like with Sebastian Rogers. So, and the other thing I want to be upfront about too is psychic mediums and the impressions we get are not always reliable, especially when it comes to true crime or anything related to crimes and the laws, okay? It should never take the place of law enforcement. It should never take the place of medical. And the whole reason I'm doing this video to begin with is maybe to help validate some things that other mediums have picked up, maybe help validate some of the things that law enforcement has picked up, but also to provide new perspectives and maybe look in areas where they haven't looked before, or maybe, I don't know, interview certain people that they might not have interviewed before, or double down on somebody that they have their sights on. This is not to replace any type of law enforcement, so let me get this clear. Second, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. So if I list people that I have seen, doesn't mean that they're guilty. It just means like, that's weird. I don't know why I'm seeing this, or this, but maybe it would be a good idea to look into. So I am not accusing anybody of anything, but I'm also giving my opinions of certain situations of this case. Okay? Okay. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, just in case some people might misconstrue the purpose of this video and my intentions. Because right now, there's a lot of people from a certain video that are going ham on me, and it is what it is. But yeah, let's jump right into the basics of what we know about Summer Wells and her disappearance. Summer Wells, a 5-year-old girl, was reported missing from her home on Ben Hill Road in the Beach Creek area of Rogersville, Hawkins County, Tennessee on June 15th, 2021. She was last seen between approximately 5:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. at her home. Her mother, Candace Bly, told police that Summer had been planting flowers with her and her grandmother in the yard. Summer then went inside, said she was going upstairs to play with her toys in the basement, and was later found to be missing. Her father, Donald Wells, said the basement door, which was unlocked, was how she exited the house, and they haven't seen her since. Her older brother said she went down to the basement to play and was never seen again. An Amber Alert was issued. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation has described the search as one of the most exhaustive and involved missing child cases they have ever investigated, involving ground and aerial searches and tracking dogs. Search dogs reportedly tracked her scent into the woods behind the house, but the trail was eventually lost. Her parents maintain the belief that she was kidnapped from their home, though the TBI has stated there is no evidence to support this. Authorities asked the public for information about a red or maroon 1998 to 2000 Toyota Tacoma truck with a full bed ladder rack and white buckets in the bed that was seen in the area around the time of the disappearance. The driver is sought as a potential witness, not a suspect, and has not been identified. The case remains active, with the TBI continuing to investigate, follow up on leads, and address misinformation. The Amber Alert also remains active. Investigators have executed search warrants and collected potential digital evidence. Summer's 3 older brothers were removed from the family home by the Tennessee Department of Child Services about a month after her disappearance. The parents eventually signed over their rights to the state. All sources will be put down in the description box below. Alright, so I did some investigating on the family, like the parents of Summer Wells, and all sources will be documented down below in the description box. So if any of this is wrong, I'm sorry. I know I fucked up Sebastian Rogers' mom's occupation. I know. You can thank Google for that one. But anyway, so based on the available information, the family background of Summer Wells includes a history of domestic issues and criminal records involving both parents.
He said, quote, "It's in the past and we'll leave it there," end quote. We also asked Wells about charges in Hawkins County. According to police reports, Wells was arrested in October 2020 and charged with domestic assault, possession of a handgun while under the influence, and unlawful possession of a weapon, following an incident with Summer's mother.
We've worked it out. She's apologized to me. She's went to the district attorneys. She even talked to the judge and told him that she made a serious mistake, and that's the end of it.
This past April, Wells pled guilty to possession of a handgun while under the influence. The other charges were dismissed. Josh and Sarah?
Amy, thanks. And we want to point out here that TBI says the Wells family has been very cooperative with investigators throughout their search efforts.
Friends of the family tell us they're doing their best to keep their spirits up on day 9.
I didn't find anything in regards to their jobs or professions. I'm sure it's out there. Those who've been following this case probably know way more than I will ever. So you can educate me in the comments if it is out there. I'm just curious. But Donald Wells, the father, has an extensive criminal history across multiple states, which he has addressed by saying it's in the past and we'll leave it there. Okay. I understand, like, especially if they really didn't have anything to do with her disappearance. It would be frustrating for people to dwell on that instead of, the real perpetrator. But anyway, I mean, there's been things in the news that I've seen, but at one point there's a video out there of their living situation, and yeah, it's not great, and people are judging them based on that and their prior criminal records. So yeah, it could be a bit of a distraction and get in the way of the investigation for sure. And this is not to judge them by any means. Okay? Just want to put that out there. So Tennessee charges in Hawkins County. October 2020, Donald was arrested and charged with domestic assault, possession of a handgun while under the influence, and unlawful possession of a weapon. Following an incident with Summer's mother, the domestic assault and unlawful possession charges were dismissed after Candace Bly dropped the charges In April 2021, prior to Summer's disappearance, he pleaded guilty to possession of a handgun while under the influence. November 2021, he was arrested for allegedly driving under the influence, having an open container in violation of financial responsibility, and was later reported to be serving time in jail for a DUI charge. He was also arrested in November 2021 for violation of probation. I mean, all that tells me is that he might have a substance abuse problem. And if you live out kind of where they live, kind of almost in the wilderness, I would have a handgun too. Just saying. I mean, out of this, the most problematic thing would be driving under the influence and then the domestic abuse. And then you pair that with the handgun. Yeah, problem. But having a gun in of itself, who doesn't at this point? And then Utah charges, 1990 to 2001, he pleaded guilty to charges including attempted aggravated assault, interfering with a public servant, forgery, burglary of a dwelling, and theft. Yeah, that doesn't look good. Arkansas charges, 2006 to 2007. Charges include possession of controlled counterfeit substances without a prescription and burglary. Then Candace Bly, the mother. She has a criminal record in Wisconsin, including a guilty plea on a misdemeanor domestic abuse charge from 2003. She accused Donald Wells of domestic assault in October 2020, but dropped the charges a week later in a 2020 protection order against her husband. She reportedly wrote, "She was afraid for my children and myself." One source mentions that Summer Wells' father addressed his convicted sex offender son in an interview, indicating a close relative, Summer's older half-brother, has a criminal record. Now, they were saying that had more to do with statutory limits because the son was 18 months older than his girlfriend. So, other states, there are different laws. Summer's 3 older brothers were removed from the home by Department of Children's Services about a month after her disappearance. Donald Wells stated that this was because false theories about the case caused him to start drinking, leading to the removal. However, if you looked at his previous convictions, he's been in trouble before her disappearance, so, okay, whatever.
Stop it.
Some online discussions noted that the family's dwelling area and yard were described as filthy, and there were claims of neglect and drug use in the home. Clearly, at the end of the day, do I think these guys are trustworthy? Absolutely not. As you can see in their prior conviction list, it's somewhat extensive, but I don't know. I wouldn't be trusting them. I'm sure what they've told the police, the public, isn't 100% the truth, probably to save themselves, and so they don't have their children removed, although that didn't quite work out. But this is going to be rough in terms of getting any useful information. Again, sources will be put down below. With the Sebastian Rogers video, I know I accidentally said some misinformation about the mother and her job. Again, I am so sorry for that. And I always welcome you guys to correct me if I, mess up information. However, if you are going to be nasty about it, I'm at the point where I might just delete your comment. Because I can welcome criticism. That is the best way you can grow and become a better person, better in your craft, whatever. I welcome that. But there are the right way and the wrong ways in which you provide the critique. So, just keep that in mind. I don't purposely mess up. Like, that's not what I try to do. It sucks in the moment, especially after something's been published. It fucking sucks, okay? And I've been hard on myself about it. But you know what? Everyone makes mistakes. So, lessons have been learned. Now let's get into the channeling information impressions, whatever you want to call it. Guys, like I said, this one was rough because I ran myself ragged to where I think I have a cold now because of it. But a lot of the information that I got is very vague considering where these people live. Here's a map. Yeah, it's gonna be really fucking hard to find anything, find any evidence. I mean, even if people looked in those woods every single day, that shit's gonna be very difficult. 4 years have passed. You have shrubbery, trees, overgrowth of weeds and stuff like that, natural erosion and stuff like that. It's gonna be hard. This one thing Spirit wanted to relay to me was that you might not, I'm not saying that this is for sure, but you might not necessarily find her. You're gonna find the perp first. The perp is going to be found, and that is how you find her. Especially because of what we're dealing with in terms of land. For those of you who are newer to my channel, if you don't know this about me, I'm not just a psychic medium. I do have a degree in social deviance and psychology. And so when the psychic stuff isn't coming through, I default to my education and what I know best. So, I don't know if that really helps. But if it does, great. If it doesn't... Alright, so during my psychic channelings, I kind of split my notes into different, sections. One section has to do with what I feel very strongly, and the other one is kind of like all my notes, but unfiltered, if that makes sense. But some of it, I don't even know how reliable it is. And guys, for those of you that have been on this case since day one, only you guys will probably know about that, how, valid they are. And yeah, because like I said, I don't know much about this case in terms of, because I haven't followed it since day one. That's just how the cookie crumbles, I guess. But I figured I would put all the notes that I took during my channeling out there in case things can be validated. I know not everything's going to be validated. I'm sure some things are even wrong. And a lot of times when you channel, you have to think about this. This case is 4 years old, which means a lot of theories are out there. And the collective in of itself has a bunch of these theories and information out there. And so when I tap in, I could tap into the collective, I could tap into surrounding earthies or spirits, I can tap into remote viewing. There are many different sources in which I'm perceiving information. And that's why it can be unreliable at times. And like I said, I'll always be upfront about this. I'm not trying to be something I'm not and pretend I know something that I don't know. So, hopefully you guys understand that. But some of the really strong psychic impressions that I had were during my remote view session of the yard and surrounding area. At the time, again, I didn't know what I was looking at because I didn't look up any information. I didn't know what the home looked like or its area. So the fact that I got a wooded area, farmland, fields full of brush, a creek, a small stone bridge with the creek passing through it and dirt roads, to me, that's crazy. But for those of you, again, that have been on this case since day one, to you, it's oh yeah, basic information. So I understand both perspectives. But one thing I do remember from channeling is that day I see Summer playing on the swing and someone scooping her up, taking her through the woods and into a silver car. But again, this could be a narrative that I had picked up and not necessarily fact. As for the silver car part, I think what happens is Spirit just shows me images of a vehicle, not necessarily accurate, So my default symbol for a car could be a silver car. Doesn't mean that the car was silver, it's just that a car was used. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, doing the research to have the beginning of my video, I know they're looking for a maroon Tacoma truck of some sort. But that's not to take away anything previous psychics or mediums have picked up. This is just the information I received and how I interpreted it. I'm not here to put anyone down, not here to say, oh, it's my interpretations or my impressions or the highway. No, I don't think that way. I know a lot of this stuff isn't necessarily reliable. Hence why law enforcement is very important. Other things that I had gotten. One thing I know for certain, without a doubt, and again, this could be more of an opinion because there isn't necessarily fact backing this up. Or there might be. Again, let me know in the comment section below. But someone or multiple people are lying about what actually happened that day. I think the parents are lying. Again, extensive criminal history, record, substance abuse. You know, they're already under supervision of the law because of their past history. So the last thing they're going to want to do is go back to jail. Or I should say at least Donald. I don't know. I don't think the mother was ever in jail. But again, I could be wrong. I do know one thing that came in very clear was a decent sized barn with stairs. I remember seeing the straw and the dirt on the wooden floor. I remember the two doors. It was open in the way I saw it, but I remember like if you're inside the barn and you're looking out the doors, the stairs are on the left, my left, and there's like a little upstairs area. I distinctly heard the sound of metal squeaking. Now, in my opinion, it sounded like that of a metal gate opening and closing, but it doesn't necessarily mean it was a gate. It could be something else. But for my interpretation, to me, it sounded like a gate, like the hinges needed some WD-40 or something. Transport vehicle. I believe there was a transport vehicle. I feel like multiple people are involved, or if one person was the main person who did the thing or the act, I think there are other people that are aware of what happened. So, regardless, I believe multiple people are involved. I also believe that through my psychic impressions that there are potential multiple burial locations. I kept seeing two different areas. One was by a tree, and there was like a dug up like area with the dirt put back. And then I kept seeing a ravine area too. Again, it's very vague for the area. I mean, the area in of itself is very like wooded, and I'm sure there's ravines and dirt roads and paths and stuff. And there's probably many miles of that. So that's why it's hard to pin down a specific location. I firmly believe that the offender is a repeat offender with a criminal record and is a man. And I also believe that there are more victims. Some other things that I had seen. I was seeing a smaller bed, almost like a twin or something child-sized, with one of those metal things at the foot of the bed with the bars. I was seeing a red cushioned fancy wide chair with like some kind of darker ornate wood that had like the hand or armrests on each side. I was seeing a house with, it's like that, I don't know if it's tin, it's some kind of metal like covered thing that goes over the porch. A lot of smaller houses have this. I was seeing that type of house, pretty small. I was seeing the little rocky stone bridge that goes over the creek with part of the creek going through it, and that has like a path on it. I don't know if it's like a road like where you can drive on, or if it's just like a walking path. It's probably more of a walking path. But I'm sure with the creek there, that they're gonna have one of those, probably. So, could it be a path that Summer walked on during the day she went missing? Could it be something she saw quite frequently due to her day-to-day life? That's why, again, it's kind of hard to tell or pinpoint anything. A lot of dirt roads or paths. I was seeing a tall chain-linked fence, and that's why I kind of assumed that that metal squeaking sound was that fence moving, like opening and closing, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But I just was like, okay, that's interesting. But it's like a road goes into it, like a dirt, gravelly road leads through the fence. Part of me wonders if she had an accident, like she wandered off and got hurt and they found her and then they tried to cover it up. But again, that's not my psychic senses. That's more of my social deviance education senses. During my remote viewing session, I remember hearing the crunching of leaves and shrubbery and sticks under someone's feet, which is very common when you're walking through the woods. Then I heard some dialogue, not in any specific order really, and some phrases, but I heard mystery place. And then this next one was hard because I heard like a talking, but I couldn't make out what they said. But right after it said, buy a car. So it's blank, mystery, whatever, buy a car, like mystery word. And then she sat down. Then I started seeing images of the silver car, which could just be a default symbol for car. I heard, how's it going? And then someone replying to that question, just watching a show. Then I remember looking down into something that looks like a box of some sort. It's brown. It's dirty. That's all I know. Plastic duck. And then I heard the phrase, every single day for 30 minutes. Don't know what that means. Then I had to take a break because what would happen is I'd get so into channeling that hours would go by to the point where I was working too hard and I was making myself sick eventually. So then I had to continue to the next day. So mind you, I'm doing channeling sessions that are like, I would say between 6 to 8 hours each in meditation. And not all of this is back to back to back to back. Sometimes there's space in between. And I had my blindfold on and my earplugs in, so I had no other distractions. Anyway, so on 11/11/2025, which is the next day, I continued up again. I heard, Michael is dead. Don't know who that is. Don't know where it is, who it's from, whatever. Danbury. And at this point, I start having trouble connecting. It's like I would connect, and then I would either A, fall asleep, B, get caught up in like thoughts, my own thoughts. And I'm like, no. Like I can usually get out of that and just go back to my meditation, no problem. But for whatever that reason, that day, it was hard to get out of that cycle. But I was able to get out of it eventually. I was seeing many faces looking down at me, and they were all male. I wrote in my notes 5 to 6. That was just a guesstimate because they were very hazy. I'm not making any statements here, just providing what I saw. And interpretation, again, can be rough because it's like Am I seeing this through her eyes? Am I dead? Am I alive? Like, am I seeing spirits helping me cross over? Or is this before death? I don't know. I can't give you that answer. Can't tell you what I don't know. One face was a white man with brown long hair, a mustache, and a beard. Looked like a hippie Jesus. I don't know. But like, yucky. Like yuckier. Of course, I did see a man with longer hair, like gray hair, a gray mustache and beard, but then I come to the realization as I'm looking for the background information for this video that that was her father. Doesn't mean he's guilty of her disappearance in any way. Of course I'm gonna see him regardless because that's her father. But that's why this is very unreliable. But Spirit did show me the stairwell to heaven. So I'm going to take that as a sign that she is no longer living, unfortunately. I mean, I hope I am so wrong. I hope some good person kind of like took her into a better home and is raising her in like the best possible home situation. But in reality, I don't think that's what happened. Of course, we all wish she is in a good spot, but... And then I did start seeing power lines through grassy and brushy areas near woods and hills. I was seeing a man almost in like a brown uniform, had a badge, almost looked like a park ranger. In my notes I have it that it's a park ranger. Doesn't mean he's a park ranger. It's just that's kind of what I'm associating with it. And he's wearing like a cowboy hat or a cowboy styled hat. And he has dark brown hair, dark brown mustache, short facial hair like here, pale skin, maybe in his 40s, average build. So not like skinny, not fat. I heard the word beach and then comma and then wood. So they're two separate words. Now obviously when I was doing the background information, beach is part of the name of where she went missing. So that's interesting. Again, kept seeing small ravines. And sometimes they might collect water at times, depending on the rainfall. And it does feel like there are multiple burial sites or burial areas, as in they moved the body. And the only reason I'm saying this again is because I kept seeing different burial areas. So this case is gonna be tricky because maybe law enforcement did find a spot, but then she was moved. So again, it makes it really hard. But I do think the perp does monitor social media and the news to make sure. I think any leads or clues should strictly go to law enforcement and not on the internet. The only reason I'm doing this video in the first place, I don't think I have much information that would be helpful to law enforcement because a lot of it is vague. I don't feel like it's going to do any harm. But if anyone has any solid leads, I would maybe skip the internet or socials and just send it right to police. It's only if police do nothing about it, that's maybe when I would reach out to the internet, but it's hard because a lot of that land is private property, so it's not like you can go and search it on your own. And as I stated earlier, I do feel like we're dealing with more than one person, and I suspect there might be more than one victim. I mean, that would also explain the multiple burial sites too, in case, so maybe she wasn't moved and there's just multiple victims, but it's hard to tell. I heard the phrase, ain't his first, ain't his last, in that exact accent too. And then I saw I think there were two screwdrivers, kind of like this, kind of like crossed. One was definitely a screwdriver, the other half of the X was kind of hazy. I don't know if it means anything. Maybe it's a handyman thing. But I was seeing something like this with two different tools or two different variations of the same tool. One had, I believe, a red handle. I was seeing a badge of someone, and that could have to do with the park ranger-esque person that I was seeing. I will say this too, the majority of the stuff that happened to Summer was blocked out with the assistance of Spirit to prevent her from suffering tremendously, which honestly is kind of a relief, because the last thing you want is a 5-year-old or a child to go through something so traumatic like that. It's terrible. The last part of my notes, I did see a female with brown hair. She was pale in complexion. Not quite sure what her ethnicity is or was, but what I heard after that was, if you find her, you find Summer Wells. So I'm wondering if there's something to this, and maybe there's another victim to be found, and if you find her, you will find Summer. I'm not quite sure. But this case is complicated, and I'm sorry guys, I wish I had more information. But given what the terrain looks like, it's gonna be very difficult. Let's switch over to true crime, social deviance, brain. Alright, so the more I learn about this case, the more I'm just like, bruh. Anyway, so apparently the sister of Candace also went missing, which, to be honest, when I saw her picture, I'm just like, that looks like the woman that I saw in the channeling. That was like, I don't want to say she was held captive, but she looked like she was being held captive in this channeling experience. So, and then Spirit saying, if you find her, you find Summer. What if the same person who did to the sister also had something to do with Summer? You know, when you have two missing people in a family, that's not a coincidence. That's a fucking pattern. We learned this in criminology class. There's no such thing as a coincidence. Usually just patterns. And so now I'm just like, somebody be lying about something. And I did watch one of the interviews with both parents, and I'm not a behavioral analyst, so take what I say with a grain of salt. However, the mother and the father's responses and expressions,
I know she didn't walk away from this property by herself or off this yard by her swing. I feel in my heart that somebody has came up here and took her, has lured her away from here. Me and my mother and her were planting flowers, and we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from Grandma, and she wanted to go back over and see her brothers, and I said okay, and I walked her all the way over to the porch, and I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV, and I told the boys, I said, watch Summer, I'll be back. And within 2 minutes I came back, and I asked the boys where their sister was, and they said, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times, and I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. I don't go on walks around here or runs because I'm scared of the bears and snakes and even the coyotes that are around here. Well, whoever has my daughter, I pray and hope that they have not harmed her and they bring her back to us safe and sound.
Just go to the FBI, the police, and clear it up. I mean, I don't know. It seems kind of elusive.
It's really strange that I've never seen this truck, and I've never heard of it until just recently. But I wish they would come forward and explain themselves. And if you're not a suspect, at least come forward and say what you've seen. She was a tomboy. I shaved my head. She wanted to have her head shaved like me and the boys did.
She tried to shave her head
She tried
in
to
the
shave her
back
head
and make
herself.
it, I think you can see it in some of the pictures, and it was getting out of control. So we decided to shave her head off and let it grow back long, and she shaved her head so she wouldn't feel bad. And but it didn't bother her at this point. Well, I knew right away that she was abducted. You know, I knew that right away, and that's what I told them from the beginning. But they have to go through their, I forget the word.
Investigation.
They have to do one step at a time, I guess. But I'm sorry that they had to spend so many man hours in these woods and everything. I've seen them limping and everything else, and I feel for them. But I just wish there was a way that neighbors could search neighbors' houses, and then if they're not willing, get a search warrant or something. But there's just no way you can search every single house, in the eastern United States or whatever.
If a parent is missing their child, I'm sorry, but I would be losing my fucking mind, dude. No matter the interview or what time of day, when, how many years later, like, I would probably just start bawling on camera. But you know what? Everyone deals with trauma and fucked up experiences in their own unique way. So who am I to say anything? But I'm just pointing out that I think it's a little weird, and how the father just jumps right into, I think she was kidnapped. You have a bunch of woods surrounding your entire, neighborhood. You don't think she wandered in there? She's a 5-year-old. But, I mean, they're the parents. You would think they'd know the basic behaviors of their own kid. So maybe, if she didn't go in the woods, that was never something she did. Okay, cool. But, I don't know. As a kid, my ass would have been in the fucking woods. Donald in his interview said she liked dirt, she liked being outside. Why wouldn't she want to go into the woods unless they kind of said, hey, you're not allowed to go in the woods, don't go in the woods, there's snakes and things, and maybe taught her, then okay, yeah, cool. But I'm sorry, maybe I was just a bad kid, I don't know. My ass would have been in the fucking woods. Snakes and shit would not have bothered me. I would have been a snake, ooh, I want one, but again, I don't know them on a personal level, so my opinions don't really matter, to be honest. But I just wanted to point out that I thought it was a bombastic side eye that the aunt is missing, and kind of no one knows what the fuck happened, and that case kind of went cold. That's weird. That's suspicious. That's just my opinion. Again, the other thing I wanted to point out, and guys, this is why I say in the court of law, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. They've got a lot of harassment, and if they are indeed innocent, that's fucking terrible to have to go through that as a family who's already kind of in mourning in a way. Well, they don't know if their daughter is dead or alive, though they've been speaking in the past tense, which is also very odd. Suspicious. I don't know. It just that's how I can only explain it is. So also I want to point out, I don't know, it was the mother's poker face that just, I can tell that these guys, and yeah, it's in the criminal history, in criminal records, that they allegedly have issues with some sort of substance abuse. Alcohol, I think, for one, I believe, for Donald. And who knows with the mother. But as someone who knows a lot about drug addiction and drug abuse and substance abuse due to having a family member involved in that stuff, when you're desperate in that type of mindset of the craving and the addiction, you kind of don't care about family. You do whatever you have to do to get your plug and get your high or whatever, depending on the level of the addiction that you're in. Now, of course, not everyone's this way, but from my studies, from experience, many people are like this. So my question is, I would hate to throw this out there if it's not true, but what if, this is a theory, this is an opinion, I'm not accusing, this is just a what if, one of them needed their thing, whatever their hookup is, badly, and that was to sell summer. It's happened. I've seen it happen in cases that I've studied. Like, people will do desperate things just for their addiction. Could have happened to me. I could have been one of those victims when I was younger and in high school. I have a half-sister that does all sorts of shit, and I could have been put in a really fucked up situation. I will not provide any more details than that, but yeah. So I hope that that isn't true, but it's something that crossed my mind. I'm sure it's crossed many people's minds. You would hate to think that, but I don't know. It's just the energy of these people, their reactions, how they're communicating, and the words that they are choosing to say. And as someone, like, I don't know. It's just weird that Donald just jumps right to someone kidnapped her instead of, oh, maybe she wandered into the woods, or maybe she ran from something that came out of the woods, like a bear or something. Like, it would be more plausible for it to have to do with the woods than for someone to kidnap her, especially kind of in a very rural area that has a lot of trees. And when it comes to kidnapping, this is statistics, but 50% of all kidnappings is usually done by a family member. And then the rest is usually done by a stranger. Of course, the ones done by strangers are more dangerous, because you don't know what the fuck they're gonna do. Whether it's human trafficking, whether it's because they want their own kid and couldn't have any and they resort to desperate measures, or whatever sick bullshit that they want to do. But that's why I'm just like, things don't add up. But the problem is, because they don't have a body, law enforcement can't say what happened. If they had found a body, then they'd know they'd be looking for a murder suspect, but they don't technically know if Summer is dead or alive. That's the sad truth of it. The other thing is, when it comes to kidnappings, a lot of it has to do with opportunity. So if the person doing the crime sees an opportunity, yeah, they're going to take it. But here's the question. Was it something where they just happened to drive by and boom, there she was? Yeah, like, their front yard doesn't seem to have a lot of trees, so you could probably see it from the road. And you have to kind of drive slower on that road because of, like, the rockiness and the It's not like a perfectly paved road, at least from what I'm seeing from Google Earth. I could be wrong. But plus animals and stuff on the road. I'm not buying it. But back to the kidnapping, it's like, first you need the opportunity. And sometimes you'll get like last minute like snags where it's kind of in the moment, not planned out. And then you also have the ones that are planned out where you have perpetrators casing either a location or a specific child. I would say more often than not, they'll case a location where they know, and neighbors didn't report like certain vehicles kind of lurking around frequently or anything. It's not like they noticed a certain car or vehicle lurking around the area. You just have people that go by. And so that's why I'm just like, that's weird. That's weird. These types of crimes, they're usually planned out better. So for someone to just be like, oh, I see a little girl, I'm going to just snag her just from a first glance, like, heat of the moment opportunity. Like, they would have to know that they could get away with it. That's why I'm just like, that's weird. I don't know. Just things to think about, guys. There was one article where I read that one of the neighbors did hear a scream. They didn't think much about it. I mean, if you live around children, they scream. And so it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. You don't really think much about it because it's probably something that either might happen often because they're playing or whatever. So I'm sure that person feels really guilty. And I kind of feel bad that I'm sure that's where their headspace is. But yeah, I mean, anything could have happened. Again, the woods, there's wild animals, there's a creek. But the fact that it was searched, now, of course, it's so big, this forested area, it's probably impossible to comb through 100% of it. And if you look on the map that I shared earlier, I'll share it again, it's massive, and it's kind of like almost half of the state. So, yeah, no wonder they haven't found anything. But, guys, that's kind of like my, I don't know, true crime brain portion of it, aside from the psychic stuff. Other than that, that's all I really have. I'm sorry I couldn't provide more information. I wish I could. Maybe down the line I'll get some more impressions and might be able to provide an update. But until then, that's all I've got. If you made it through the end, thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate it. And again, guys, if I mess up any information, don't hesitate to educate me in the comments. I'm human. I fuck up. I mean, shit happens. But this time I'll have the sources in the description box below so you can see where I got my information. But anyway, guys, thanks again for watching, and I will see you all soon. Peace out.
Drifting through the velvet sky.